speaking of a-hole zebras, it's time for the Undercountry Music News. Kind of catches you off guard when I play that one straight, huh? Hello, everyone in talk show land. For those of you who don't know, the Undercountry Music News is a part of the show that I break out on its own. It's in the overall show Undercountry Music, which if you're listening to the whole show, you already know that. But for those of you just tuning in on our talk show formats, the Undercountry Music News is broken out as its very own show, all on its own, for platforms like Spreaker and YouTube. Places where I can't really be playing the music. The banjo's behind me, I can get away with that. That's not a big deal. But the reason I do that is because I like my show to be everywhere and attract people. And, you know, I'll get copyright flags on YouTube regardless of if I have permission to play the music or not. And on Spreaker, I am trying to get 100 followers over there so I can get the show onto iHeartRadio. Well, iHeartRadio won't take the show if it has music on it, so my only shot is to get the news section onto iHeartRadio. Right now I have about 25 followers over there, which is freaking awesome. I'm like a quarter of the way there. So if you're listening to this and you're having a good time, get on over to Spreaker and give me a follow. And here's how you get there. Just go to undercountrymusicnews.com and that'll redirect you to that page. Give it a follow there. As soon as I get 100 followers over there, I have a real great shot at getting this portion of the show onto iHeartRadio. So once again, that's Undercountry Music News. All right, what actually is the damn Undercountry Music News? All right, this is where I go on to Google and I type in the search term country music news. And I see what web pages, what websites come up on the first page of search results with Google. And then I go into each one of those websites and I pick the one or two real country music news stories from each one. And I compile them all together with the actual news that you can freaking use, and I bring it to you each and every week here on the Undercountry Music News. Now the reason that's significant is because most of these websites just put out a bunch of BS press releases. You know, the artists send them these stupid press releases about every dopey thing they're doing, and these places run it like it's news, whether it is or not. You know, like, Craig Morgan reflects back on Father's Day of years past, and crap like that, right? So what happens if I go to one of these websites and all they got is crap like that and no actual country music news stories? Well, I reward that website with the Undercountry Music News Wet Belch of the Week. It's usually only given to one website per week, sometimes none. So if I find some news on every one of them, then I don't belch. But what it does mean is that if I find a website not doing its job and not reporting any country music news when it says it does, you're going to get my wet belch in the ear, and you can thank the other website for it. All right? Good. I'm glad we got that cleared up here. I did go to Famous Dave's Barbecue for my Father's Day lunch today, so I'm ready to gas it up. All right, over at CMT, they got nothing but a bunch of Father's Day crap. They aren't reporting any news at all. They mailed it in. They're not doing their job, so you know what that means? That's right, the Undercountry Music News Wet Belch of the Week, right out of the gate. And they deserved it, too. And you'll find out why, because there's lots of country music news. There's no reason for them to not have any country music news, damn it. All right, over at Country Weekly, Kacey Musgraves is cutting an album with Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. At least that's what the headline reads. As soon as you get into the story, you click to read more, then you learn she's just singing a couple of backups on his album, and that's it. A couple of oohs and ahs in the background, and that's all she's doing. So they're effing liars over there at Country Weekly. Now you can also see a video for the Pawn Shop King's new crappy love song called Fall Apart. If you're into horse manure, over at countryweekly.com. Actually, I'd like to hear a song called Fall Apart if you're into horse manure. That'd be cool. Over at Taste of Country, Craig Morgan, the international harvester, he reveals the details behind a shoulder injury that caused him to cancel a string of shows last month. Now, what the real story is, and it turns out it's not the same as the story that was released at the time. And we'll get into that in a minute. But apparently, he was sparring with MMA fighter Dan Henderson at his training camp. At Dan's training camp, not Craig's training camp. And Craig fell while sparring and dislocated his shoulder, which tore everything away from the bone, quote unquote. Ouch. Okay, I'm not going to try and tell you that it didn't frickin' hurt, because that sounds not a little bit painful, like a whole lot of it painful. Okay? Pain acknowledged, Craig. No fun. I did take Craig to task a couple episodes ago here on Undercountry Music News about this, because he canceled a string of shows over a shoulder injury. Well, you can still sing, buddy. Well, now I find out that the whole original story they told, though, was a complete lie! You see, a few weeks ago, the story that was put out, now, I don't know if this is from his handlers or what, but somebody told a big fat effing fib up in here, because a few weeks ago, the story was that Craig went in for an outpatient surgery to repair scar tissue from a past history of motocross racing. And when the doctors got into the shoulder, which they figured was just going to be a short outpatient procedure, not causing him to cancel any shows, the damage they found was actually more extensive than they had anticipated, and a much more invasive and radical surgery had to take place once they were in there, which is why he was so racked up that shows had to be canceled and fans were left hanging. Well, now we know that was all BS. Well, one of these stories is BS anyway. Either way, I will tell you, sparring with a professional MMA fighter one day before you have an obligation to fans and event investors, not to mention all the other people who make their living by counting on you, like the concession stand workers, the t-shirt vendors, the parking lot attendants, etc. Oh yeah, and the police there as well, who are guiding traffic. All those people are counting on you to put food on their families' tables at night. And this is just unexcusably lame. Mr. Morgan, in my opinion, shoulder sling or not, you did have an obligation to keep your commitments. If you really cared that much, you could have come out with the sling on and stood, sat, whatever it took, and just sang your songs. And you know what? It would have been a very special show, and you would have been a hero. But now you're just a guy who did something stupid, canceled a bunch of shows, took food off a whole lot of people's dinner plates that night, and, that should not have happened. And then ultimately, there is a big lie about the reason. Now, I don't know if it came directly from you or someone involved with you, but there was definitely a big fat lie from your camp. Not cool. Over at GAC, Great American Country, we have recipes appearing in the news again. This time, it's one pan Nan Kelley with her concoction of berries with brown sugar. See, Nan Kelley's thing is all her recipes are made in a single pan. Now, sometimes it's, one pan Nan. Other times it's Crystal in the kitchen. It's Crystal Keith in the kitchen. Toby Keith's daughter makes a lot of good, yummy, delicious stuff, too. Yeah, that's about all they got over there. It's really not news, but I'm not going to give them the belch. Not for that. Right. As a matter of fact, I already gave out the belch, didn't I? Can I give out 2 in one episode? It's happened before. I think it's happened once before. Over at Nashville Gab, Dolly Parton reaches yet another amazing milestone in her career by making the top 20 most popular funeral songs list with her song I Will Always Love You, which is usually recognized as a Whitney Houston song, but it's not. It's a Dolly song. The Cooperative Funeral Care of England compiled this list based upon requests made at 30,000 services over a 12-month period in 2012. We're going to assume those were funeral services. All right. Moving right along here. At theboot.com. Call them theburp.com because they just got the Undercountry Music News Wet Belch of the Week because they got nothing. I handed out 2 belches this week. That is a very rare occasion. That's like a blood moon. Anyway, moving along. They don't deserve it. So let's keep going here. Over at the 615, which is a division of Billboard.com, you can hear a couple of songs from the new Willie Nelson album, Band of Brothers. Both the songs they got posted are kind of slow and sleepy. And Willie's voice is real shaky. I'm not sure how much longer Willie Nelson's going to be at it. So you might, if you're always wanted to see Willie Nelson, you might want to do it soon. Because there are telltales. When your voice sounds like you're, on a cheap motel bed. Well, anyway, still, it is a collection. His new album, Band of Brothers, is a collection of new and original songs. Instead of what most guys in the twilight of their careers do, which is to put out new recordings of past hits for a quick buck or just repackage old albums. Ask Led Zeppelin how many times they've done that. They're doing it right now, actually. Anyway, so I have to give Willie some props here. Still touring his ass off and still cutting albums and ripping bong hits on the tour bus. I don't know how much longer we're going to have this guy around for, but I will sure miss him when he's gone. Also over at the 615, the band Shenandoah narrowly avoids being burned alive on the highway after a fuel truck explodes right in front of them on a highway in Texas. Now, in all the commotion, a car sideswipes Shenandoah's, I'm assuming, tour bus and sent them hurtling through a huge fireball, which came from, the wrecked tanker truck that was on fire in front of them. Now, fortunately, the bus and the crew and those guys all came out, they're fine. Nobody was hurt, not even anybody involved in the accident at all, including the tanker truck. Nobody was badly hurt, and there wasn't even enough damage to their bus to even detain them. Missed having that Dolly Parton song played for them by a whisker. Over at Country Standard Time, Toby Keith releases a box set of 5 of his past albums. Nope, no new material, just repackaging the stuff you already have for a quick buck. Lame. Come on, Toby. Willie Nelson just dropped a new album of all new material and has another one scheduled for this fall. And he farts dust. All you can manage is to grab 5 old albums of yours and shrink wrap them together and call it a new release? Really? That's all you got, Toby? There ain't no more bullets in the gun? You shouldn't have been a cowboy? How do I like you now? Also, over there at Country Standard Time, George Strait sets an attendance record with 104,793 people in attendance at the final show of his Cowboy Rides Away tour. And Country Standard Time goes on to erroneously state that this show was billed as his last show ever, which is an absolute lie. George Strait even said at the beginning of this tour that he is not retiring from playing shows, and has reiterated that in recent interviews, as recent as like a month ago. And he's also not retiring from recording. The only thing he is retiring from is marathon touring, where you go on the road for a year or two and you don't see your own home during that time, unless you just happen to be cruising through the town on your way to somewhere else. So once again, the machine and its BS factory trying to spin you into a tizzy. Don't believe the hype. Over at nashville.com, their second week here in the Undercountry Music News, and congratulations, guys, you made it a second week here. They are reporting that Craig Morgan's face is going to appear on packages of moon pies. That seems strangely fitting to me right about now. And this has been your news. All right, bye-bye, people in talk show land. Don't forget to like me over at Spreaker. Go to undercountrymusicnews.com and then give me a like over at Spreaker. All right.